afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you may be on the planet. Welcome to Atlantic Discuss. I'm always here for you. Call me what you like, your host, your anchor, your moderator. My name remains Ade Balogun. Yes, 2 weeks ago, we discussed about the coup in Niger, the upsurge of coup in West Africa. And we had our friend, our in-house friend, the investigative journalist, the special man, David Hundeyin was here. Now, 2 weeks down the line, he's here again. So we want to look at what is really happening. Aftermath of the ECOWAS ultimatum, what is really happening? There's been so much backing. Well, are we still going to go to war or not? A lot has happened between then and now. So we're going to look at what will likely happen and the likely eventuality, so to say. So that's why we're here. So once again, we will welcome David Hundeyin to Atlantic Discuss. David, welcome to Atlantic Discuss.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So as you all know, at Atlantic Discuss, we embrace all facets of humanity to try and disseminate a lot of positive news in a world filled with a lot of very bad news. We give a voice to the unheard always. We balance the information, the question. We search and discover the fact wherever it leads. We discuss politics, business, IT, and faith-based issues. We never run away from the fact. So as usual, we go for the jugular immediately. So David, let's look at it. After all the backing, the huffing, the puffing, the Tinubu attack, we do this. What is really the CTREP? What is the situational report today at this moment?
So essentially, you have a president who is being urged very vigorously by the people he answers to go to war, his backers. And the president who clearly wants to go to war because he wants to gain legitimacy in the eyes of these backers. But a political situation where going to war is functionally impossible. He's trying his hardest to circumvent the refusal of the Senate to approve deployment of Nigerian troops to Niger, because I can tell you categorically that these troops are being deployed as we speak. They're being deployed. However, I can also say categorically that the probability of an actual attack on Nigerian troops taking place on Niger is very low, because politically, even though most people might not realize this, politically it has been muted, especially in the north. The political partnership that brought him into power, the partnership with the north, has been pretty much, it might not look like it at the moment, but it has been pretty much destroyed already, right? Just for the fact of his willingness to actually touch the eyeball, if you like, the apple of the eye of the northern political establishment, that has put him in a very bad situation. So politically, he's actually not in a great situation right now at all. So the likelihood of an actual a Nigerian military attack on Niger is next to nil. However, the possibility still exists that hiding behind that masquerade called ECOWAS, even though you and I know that ECOWAS means Nigeria, hiding behind ECOWAS, he might still try to carry out that military mission that he is so determined to carry out, and then claim that it's not his decision, it's ECOWAS. However, ECOWAS, I can tell you this authoritatively based on inside information that I have, ECOWAS is not in any way united on the idea of attacking Niger. That communique that was read out where they said they are deploying a standby force and blah, 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 I can tell you for a fact that certain significant ECOWAS member states, I don't want to mention the countries, were very unwilling to have anything to do with it. In fact, if you recall, the last time there was a meeting of ECOWAS defense ministers in Abuja, I was reliably informed that the defense minister of Ghana specifically threatened to walk out.
Oh, wow.
He threatened to walk out of the meeting when it became clear that Nigeria and a few others were hawkish, were trying to sell the idea of going to war. The Ghanaians actually threatened to walk out. So if Nigeria is on one side and then Ghana is on another side, you know that those are two of the most powerful members of ECOWAS, pretty much. So you should know that ECOWAS is not united on this issue at all. I think he's going to have a very long road in front of him if he's trying to go to war. And I think ultimately it's the Americans and the French, if they want this war badly enough, will have to show their own hand. If they want to fight Niger that much, they will have to bring in their own troops, because I think politically speaking, the coup administration in Niger has played I personally don't believe that they are heroes. I think they're just like any other, coup plotting soldiers. They're there to grab power. But in terms of how they've been able to spin it politically, they've played it blinder. It has been a PR masterclass, because essentially they have got the young people of Africa, not just Niger, but the young people of Africa behind them, right? They've been able to very masterfully sell this as a sort of neo-colonial war against self-determination by the Americans and the French, using Nigeria as a puppet, which, by the way, is not a lie. it's pretty much the case, except for the fact that in the real sense of it, they're not actually heroes, but they've been able to sell themselves at that. So anyone who's going to attack them now is going to have a PR disaster on their hands. And Tinubu, as we know, doesn't exactly have a very strong position to begin with. So this, I think, is a nightmare for him now. So what I suspect is going to happen is that in the coming few days and weeks, he's going to start looking for ways to backpedal. All that initial agro, cutting up the electricity and all that kind of. I think we're going to start seeing him backpedal and subpedal and lots of these things. And we're going to start hearing the word discourse and dialogue a lot more.
Yeah. But I mean, from my point of view, actually, it does look like they've given him a safe landing already, because with the former Emir of Kano visiting, the subsequent visit of the large number of Islamic clerics that went recently, because the Niger junta head actually said he apologizes to the Sultan of Sokoto and all that, and everybody agrees with dialogue. The entire northern Nigeria has made it clear that there can never be an invasion of Niger. And also, back to some of the things you said, I think he lacks knowledge of history. I think there's actually nobody around him right now that knows about governance in any way. All the shenanigans and the stuff they were pulling in Lagos, I think Abuja has really exposed them. Because coming to think about it, there's actually no, to the best of my knowledge, and this is a personal opinion, I don't think there's any ECOWAS country right now that would join us and invade Niger. I don't think so. And I'll give you my reason. Alassane Ouattara, I'm sure you know very well, had issues. He was prime minister to February. When he wanted to be president, he had issues of nativity, origin, country of origin. The top then in Ivory Coast it was either Burkina or Mali. And you know, as well as I do that, from Cameroon, Nigeria, Benin, Togo, Ghana, all the way to Ivory Coast, all the northern part of those countries are Islamic. So they all have relations across the border. And those borders are actually so I don't think Alassane Ouattara, who most likely is a Malian or a Burkinabe, will join forces with Nigeria to do that, you know. And Ghana, of course, we know will not do anything. We all know that. Benin Republic just try and dances to the Nigeria tour all the time, you know, but there's really nothing there. So I agree with everything said. I think they backed without thinking, and it just goes back to most of the things you said in the past that this guy has been exposed. You know, I've heard people that support him said he's the most prepared Nigerian president. But look at it. Let us digress a bit. Almost 3 weeks after the Senate cleared all his ministers, he has not even given them portfolios. Is that a sign that there's something wrong, or is he distracted by the likely outcome of the presidential election tribunal?
I think it's both. I think it's definitely a bit distracted by the tribunal outcome. But I think more than that, I think it's just the usual fufu and iweju politics. That's all that's really good. We have a list of people who are going to be ministers. But as we know, some ministers are more minister than others. Right? Some portfolios are more powerful than others. So I think there's still a lot of high-level politicking going on to determine who gets what portfolio. I think that's the case, because the person who gets minister of transport and the person who gets minister of youth and sports, they are not the same level of portfolio. The budgets are not the same, you know. So I'm sure there's a lot of politicking going on behind the scene. Some people want to be more relevant than others, and some people who have political ambitions in 2027 and 2031, we're looking for portfolios that they think can position them to achieve those ambitions. As I've said several times, and you just alluded to it, this is not going to be an administration, however long or short it lasts, that understands or has any interest in governance. What they are good at is Nigerian politicking, low-level horse trading politicking, buying and selling. That's what they're good at. That's what they will continue to be good at. That's all they know. I think that not all we can expect from this administration.
Well, I mean, like you said, I agree with you once again, but it does look like Nigeria is battered almost beyond repairs. I mean, maybe just economically, the Naira is spiraling almost into the abyss. There are predictions that it could be 1,500 Naira to $1. And I cannot believe that in my lifetime, because I remember when I used to joke that the Zimbabwean dollar was really nothing to write home about. Today, the Zimbabwean dollar has more value. And I can tell you authoritatively, a lot of artisans in Lagos, Togolese, Beninois, they are going back home because the CFA franc seems to have better value that is there. David, what is really happening in Nigeria?
Well, this should not be misconstrued as a defense of Tinubu in any way. But I think Muhammadu Buhari is one of the luckiest people in Nigerian history because I think with the amount of damage that that man did to the Nigerian economy and to the Nigerian project, and the way he seems to have been completely forgotten in just a few months now, and it's rather Tinubu that is on everybody's lips now. In fact, like, I think Tinubu deserves it because he was the one who made Buhari president to begin with. But I also think Buhari has escaped the verdict of history enough because a lot of these issues were things that Buhari engineered out of nothing. A lot of these problems were problems that were 100% engineered by the Buhari administration. So you mentioned the rapidly sliding value of the Naira. People often forget that in 2016, which was when the Naira's dramatic slide actually began, in 2016, Nigeria did not have any kind of oil production crisis. There was no problem with oil production in Nigeria. And there was no global financial problem. In fact, the world then, the pre-pandemic world, was flush with capital looking for where to invest itself in. There was no global economic crisis. There was no oil production crisis in Nigeria. There was no reason for the Nigerian economy to be anything but relatively stable, right? And then Buhari came in, and people forget this. First of all, he created this forex crisis out of nowhere because he wanted to make his friends rich. So this thing we know as forex round tripping, it has always existed. He turned it into an industry to the point where people like even former CBN governor Sanusi came out and said that they know people who have become billionaires off of this forex scam. Why did that? That was one of the major things that started killing the Naira in the dramatic way that it has been died. And then the second thing he did, which again is escaping scrutiny, is the use of the CBN to illegally fund government budget by printing money. Right? I think at last time, more than 15 trillion naira between 2016 and present has been printed illegally. So essentially, they massively increased naira supply without any commensurate increase in oil production or any export production that brings in forex. So the only possible outcome of that is that the value of the naira has been tanking. That's a Buhari legacy. Tinubu has been in power for 3-4 months. To be like, I hate to say this, but to be fair to him, a lot of this, he didn't have any control over it. It was always going to happen, with or without him. Because Buhari left it.
But he said so many times that it's going to continue from where Buhari stops. I mean, that's what he told us. He said it's going to continue from where Buhari stopped. And they're both from the same party. And I'm sure without the support of Bola Tinubu, Buhari would never have been president. And there's no record anywhere of Tinubu speaking against the economic policies of Buhari. If anything at all, he endorsed them. So he can't absolve himself, really. Yeah.
I no sympathy for him whatsoever. It won't happen.
I don't blame you. So back to ECOWAS. Now, Nigeria, we both agree, is the heartbeat of ECOWAS. We know that ECOWAS is nothing without Nigeria. Now, it does look, even to the most ignorant person, that Nigeria is not on top of his game. This is the lowest you have ever been economically, socially, relevant. The ship of state is rudderless. There's no doubt about it. Doesn't matter whether somebody is called president, our legislature is dead, our judiciary is almost comatose. Every insignia of a failed state, Nigeria has ticked it. You understand? Now, so back to the ECOWAS discussion. What does all this portend for the sub-region? Considering the fact that there's already a lot of instability, Cameroon has their own issues they are grappling with, the Amazonian people. Chad is relatively unstable. Niger, we all know the story. Mali is under a military junta. Burkina Faso, same thing. People are not happy with Ouattara going for a third term. Senegal barely escaped Macky Sall getting a third term, and they still have problem with the Casamance rebels. There's problem everywhere. Ghana, of course, we know seems to be the only, and I repeat, only country in the sub-region that has stability. What will the outcome of the way Nigeria is going portend for the continent vis-a-vis everything we've discussed so far?
And funny enough, I was having this conversation with the Ghanaian diplomats a few weeks ago, and we both agreed that regardless of how stable Ghana may or may not be, if Nigeria continues in this trajectory and Nigeria starts to witness real political instability, Senegalese style political instability, the entire sub-region is going to be in serious trouble. Because one thing the West African sub-region is not prepared for is a stream of Nigerian refugees. Nobody has the capacity to contain even just 5 million Nigerian refugees. Nigeria on paper has 200 million people. Some paper could have as many as 100 million refugees. There's nowhere in West Africa for it. So the whole sub-region is going to be in a real crisis. Then it happens to Nigeria. And everybody is aware. Even the Beninois, whom you currently referenced as almost like a Nigerian client state, they are worried too. Benin, Togo, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, up to Liberia, Sierra Leone, that entire stretch of countries, they are all worried.
They're worried.
Nigeria, all of us are toast. Because already where Nigeria is, relatively stable, just for the fact that there is this much economic dislocation and so many Nigerians have found their way out of Nigeria, just for that alone, they're already complaining. There's hardly any way you go to West Africa, you don't find some sort of negative opinion about Nigerians. And it usually boils down to the whole, there are too many, they're taking over thing. When they're now actually Nigerian refugees in their hundreds of thousands or millions. And I really don't want to imagine what it is that could happen, both to the refugees themselves and to the countries that they're trying to get to, because these are relatively weak economies and weak countries, right? These are not countries which have a whole lot of state capacity, and even the ones which we recognize as stable, like Ghana. How stable is Ghana really? In economic terms, Ghana is not really stable.
No, they're not.
Yeah, politically, they might be relatively stable, but in terms of economics, the cedi, I think, was the world's worst performing currency. Was it last year or the year before? So, they're not far behind. So, what I hope does not happen is that a new sort of crisis develops out of all of this, where you have different players sort of eating up different parts of West Africa as their little fiefdom, basically reshaping the map, because we have a serious jihadist problem in West Africa, which I don't think gets talked about enough. It's not just Boko Haram, Nigeria. We have ISIS across that entire stretch, from right from Mali. So we have their Islamic militancy is a real problem in West Africa, and they're getting stronger. So if you now add actual state collapse to that, and then you now have Asari Dokubo kind of warlords also coming into the mix, because those people are also heavily armed. Those people are also non-state actors. Those people will also be a factor whether you like it or not. So when you now have different, fiefdoms, that on paper, that will lead to a sort of Democratic Republic of Congo state of affairs, where you have a country
or worse. Because of the population, yeah.
Yeah, and outside of the capital city, there's no country, there's no government. It's just different groups of militants and warlords having their different fiefdoms and finding different ways to sponsor themselves. So this one has grabbed in mind here, that kind of 1970s, African chaos kind of situation. And that's what we're looking at. I hope it doesn't happen. That's what we're looking at.
Do you think if the Presidential Election Tribunal rules and they do the right thing, do you think that could cool down things a bit?
It would. It definitely would. And the reason I say that is the military themselves, if you actually have analyzed the official results of the 2023 February election, I think something like 70% of all military installations, it was more than 70%, I forget the actual percentage now, but the vast majority of military installations in Nigeria actually voted for Peter Obi, right? And the reason that is significant is, first of all, the military installations generally were in voting locations where there was very little vote tampering, where there was very little attempt to mess with the outcome, because obviously there are soldiers there. So that gives you some sort of insight into what the actual result might have been of the wider election. And then secondly, it shows that military, what's important here is not so much who they voted for, but who they didn't vote for. Military did not vote for the status quo. They did not vote for the current ruling party. So if that is the case, and the tribunal does what it should do, then that will go some way toward at least pacifying military that, okay, well, at least our complaints, because it was almost like a protest vote. So at least our protests have been heard. That in itself will not solve the long-term problem. We have to buy Nigeria a yacht. To buy Nigeria a couple of years of goodwill. Ultimately, if that goodwill is wasted, we're still going to end up in the same situation where we're talking about the potential military. Because I think that's the situation we're in now. I think it's almost nailed down. People consider this to be a controversial statement, but I think just examine history.
It's not.
I think it's almost moved on that based on historical precedent, where we are now, where any preamble to coup, I think that's pretty much the end. Regardless of whatever statements the military high command puts out or doesn't put out. I think in the first place, it's never the military high command that carried out it. It's always the lower ranks anyway. So I think a proper verdict, like an actual legitimate verdict from the tribunal would buy us a few years. Would modify the military for a while, would buy us a few years.
The truth of the matter, like based on what you said, it's not a controversial statement. The constitution is clear. The Tinubu should never have even been sworn in the first instance. So there's nothing controversial about that. I don't know why Nigerians are always very reluctant to say the truth and all that. We're already in a constitutional crisis, whether we like it or not. The poor subsidy and the situation in the economy, the downward spiral of the naira is already a crisis. And also, I mean, the Niger issue has clearly shown that Nigeria is clearly rudderless. So let's just veer off a little bit more. I've noticed that in the presidential election, all the petitions we have, there are too many cases of fraudulent certificates, forgeries, and what have you. I mean, I was reading about Anambra. The guy submitted a fake NYC. Now his lawyers are like, well, the minimum requirement for school SAT is school SAT rather. So the NYC should be overlooked. That was also Olanipe Tinubu's lawyer. Also, the deputy speaker today, I heard of the House of Reps, submitted 9 different documents with 9 different names and all that. Why? I mean, is there anything we can do now and in the future? Because it does look like almost half of the people in government have one forgery or the other, or possibly have been in prison. Why is it like that?
I said the fish rots from the head. The person who I think it was very well known, even prior to last year, prior to when I did any story or anything, I think it was already very well known that the person who is purportedly president now had a very long and storied history of playing fast and loose with facts and submitting forgeries and telling lies about his past. Right? As far back as 1999. I remember shortly after the Barcelona administration came to office, the very first major forgery scandal we had was that of Charlie Supari, who was, I think, Speaker of House of Reps, and I was forced to step down. The second one, which unfortunately most people seem to have forgotten, was a certain Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who claimed to have attended the University of Chicago at the time. And then, it turned out he never attended any University of Chicago. And then, later on, said, it was actually Chicago State University. I don't know how I possibly mistake the university that he went to. That, oh no, I thought it was University of Chicago, but it was actually Chicago State University that I went to. I don't know how that is possible. I really do not understand it. It's like saying, oh, I thought I went to the University of Texas, but it was actually Texas A&M. I went to. I don't know how you can make such a...
Yeah.
That was his defense in 1999, and for whatever reason, people like Ganifa who tried to take up the issue there probably didn't pursue it to its logical conclusion then, for whatever reason. So, this person was allowed to become a governor and to become a political godfather. So for years, that's been the case that the Nigerian political system has been very tolerant. People who have submitted forgeries, who have told lies about all sorts of... I mean, if you remember the 2019 presidential petition, even going back to 2015, what am I saying 2019? As far out as 2015, when Buhari was running for office, I think it was very clear, it was evident to everyone who cared to inform themselves that the idea that, first of all, Buhari completed secondary school was not backed by any evidence.
No, it was.
There's never been any evidence that Buhari satisfied the constitutional requirements to be sworn in as president. Well, that precedent was set back then. I remember when there was this whole controversy about his WAEC certificate, he couldn't provide an O-level certificate, an SSC certificate that from that completed secondary school. And his supporters then, who were obviously Tinubu's people, were going around saying things like, oh, even if he submits a NEPA, certificate, it doesn't matter. We still vote for him. These narratives have an impact because people are watching. People realize that, oh, okay, so regardless of whether this person actually met the constitutional requirements or not, all that matters is that it's popular. Okay, so that means that I can do the same. All I have to do is make sure that I spend money strategically to make myself popular. And regardless of what happens, I'll be fine. And the courts took Buhari's side. The courts made, in my opinion, a ridiculous judgment. The court said, regardless of whether or not there's any proof that he completed secondary school, the fact that he later became a military general, he attended some military program, is equivalent, blah, 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 blah. So it can be said that he met the educational requirements. Meanwhile, that's not what the law says. So I think the Supreme Court already created a precedent for people to think that Nigerian law is just a suggestion. And really, if the law says 2 plus 2 is 4, then it doesn't necessarily mean 2 plus 2 is actually 4. It just means that based on how much you can sort of influence the judge or influence the court can interpret 2 plus 2 in any way it sees fit. So this might also come across as a very strong statement to make, but I think that if we all agree that the Nigerian political class is corrupt, Nigerian civil service is corrupt, then I don't think it's a stretch of imagination to also say that Nigerian judiciary is also corrupt.
We clearly need a reset, because I know most of the guys in the north, the Buhari said, a lot of them were taken out from Form 4. They were just taken to the military. They didn't finish there from 5. So there was no reason to lie about that. I'm sure he went to NDA and all that. So, but he didn't finish it. It's common knowledge. No matter how they try and twist that, there's no way around it. So now go ahead.
Actually put out a fake certificate. It didn't submit to INEC, they actually put out in the media. A fake certificate where the passport photograph from the certificate was a modern picture of Buhari. The certificate supposedly issued in the 1960s, and the name was misspelled as Mohammed Buhari instead of Muhammad Buhari. Right? They did that. The precedent was created that you can just throw anything out and it to be fine. So I think that we're bearing the fruits of those investments now.
Yeah, and I think for Bola Tinubu, there's something you said that I really agree with, that Buhari has been a very lucky guy. He gets away with so much, this is not the first time we have very shabby elections. The 2019 election too was a very horrible one. But it does look like Bola Tinubu is not going to get away with it, Whatever happens at the end of the day, the whole world is aware. The information are in public domain. He's carrying those baggage of fraud, identity, bagman. Everybody do. They even talk about it more in African countries now than before. So I think we need a reset. How that reset will happen, when it will happen, I really, really, really don't know. But I think it can be worse than this. My prayer is that the largest concentration of Black people anywhere in the world should not go into a conflagration, war, a refugee crisis, because nobody, and I repeat, even Europe is not ready for it. Just Badagry local government alone going into Benin, Togo, and Ghana is the catastrophe. I'm telling you. Yeah. So, David, I know busy day for you. Thank you for coming on Atlantic Discuss. Now, before you go, I'm going to ask you this. With after all said and done, what do you see? What do you see? I always ask you this. We know we're in trouble. Nigeria is in a lot of trouble. What do you think is the end result? I know it's hard to say. We're not soothsayers, but we keep guessing. We know we're in trouble economically. What does the future hold the way you see it? You've tried answering it somehow, but you were not exact. But what do you see happening? This is just the Presidential Petition Tribunal. It's the appeal court. Whatever happens, whoever doesn't like it will still go to the Supreme Court. We're sure that worst case scenario by December, we'll know where we're going. But a month from now is a long time for the economy. It's a long time. I don't even know how people that make 30,000 naira a month fill up their tank. People actually walk into work and all that. But what do you see? What does the future hold from your side, from your experience, from your knowledge, from the access you have to information, and what are you? Can you share with our viewers?
I may not be able to see the future, but I can project based on the past. And the project, if the past is anything to go by, I said it earlier today on another platform that I think 2023 is a live action replay of 1983. I think it's going to end inevitably because it was the same things that were happening in 2083. The civilian political class was very disengaged, very divorced from the reality on the ground. It was an economic crisis that was going on in Nigeria because the oil boom had just ended. People were being ground into poverty. There was all sorts of inflation and Naira was losing value and all of that was happening. And the political class living in an alternate reality, right? And we're so divorced from the reality of everyday Nigeria that when military men rolled in and were through that, people actually celebrated. And when Buhari came in, people actually celebrated. I think
I remember.
I think where that is that situation where the political class in Nigeria lives in an alternate universe. I saw an image, I think 2 days ago, yesterday, that just made me sit there and think, what are these people? I saw the so-called first son, the president's son, going out with a full security detail around him, and he was on roller skates in Abuja, and he had this extremely relaxed smile on his face, and just looked like he's having the absolute time of his life. And I thought to myself that, first of all, the lack of self-awareness to even put out such an image into the public domain at this time, or all times, at this time when effectively in the space of 3 months, most everyday Nigerians have witnessed an effective 100% inflation rate, effectively. Because where it was costing somebody 20,000 or 25,000 naira to fill their tank in May 2023, it's costing the same person 55,000 naira to fill the same tank now, and his income is unchanged. And bear in mind that this doesn't just affect car owners. This affects everybody because the cost of petrol percolates into everything in the Nigerian economy. It cascades into transport, which inflates the price of everything because everything is transport. It cascades into power generation because statistically most of Nigeria's power generation is from petrol generators. So there's this huge cost of living crisis. People are being ground into poverty. And at this time of all times, you have Godzilla Fabio saying, oh, holiday token or senators of 2 million naira. Holiday token, 2 million naira is a figure that most Nigerians would ever see in their life, statistically, at a single time. Most Nigerians statistically will never see 2 million naira in their bank account at a single time. It's not going to happen. And you are saying, oh, this holiday token for a few days for the senators, and you're putting that out. Or the son of the president is coming out and he's roller skating on the streets of Abuja, your life is good. This was what was happening in 1983. There was a huge divorce, a huge disconnect between reality on the ground and political class. And the military exploited that. So I was also saying on that other platform, I think it's Spectrum TV, that regardless of what statements the military high command puts out, they tell you, oh, we're not planning any coup. Anybody that's saying planning coup. First of all, who asked them to plan it? Nobody asked them to plan it.
That's true.
I'm being clever by half, right? When they start pushing out statements like that, when they start denying what they accuse them of, then you should be worried. Secondly, it's in their training, they're very strategic with the information that they put out. So if a soldier tells you that if a soldier tells you good money, you should check your word and make sure it's like that. It's not midnight. Right? So, and then finally, the people who plot the coups generally are not even the high command. It's the mid-level officers, the captains and the commodores. Those are the people who plot coups historically. So those people, I can tell you for a fact, are deeply dissatisfied. Very, very, very deep. But they are so dissatisfied that they are leaking top secret documents to people like me, of all people. Of all the journalists who leak things to, there are journalists who are friendly with the establishment. They didn't see any of them. It's a renegade that are leaking these documents to. That's to tell you how serious the situation is internally, regardless of whatever statement they're issuing public. So I think if the court doesn't do the right thing, I think one way or the other, we are going to be looking at a military coup. It might happen this year, it might happen in 6 years' time. Nobody knows when it's happen. But it's almost nailed on, guaranteed to happen. And I honestly cannot see any other outcome if the judiciary doesn't do what it's supposed to do. So I think good luck to all of us.
We have two quick digression. How to just let's touch on Emefiele and El Rufai. Let's start with Emefiele. I mean, I read somewhere today they're going to roll more charges against him. What do you think? I mean, that guy is, as far as I'm concerned, well, he's top people, but he was answering to Buhari, who both agree is a very lucky man, not to be there. But even the guys in government now, they've all been beneficiaries of the CBN one way or the other. How do you think the Emefiele case will end? Will it be like Desani? And I'm sure if Emefiele had run out of the country, they'll just be puffing, shouting like they did with Desani, and nothing will come out of it. But they have him under lock and key now. Do you think he will go to jail? Do you think he will have opportunity to mention names or something? What do you think?
Absolutely nothing. I think that they're going to do what they did with someone that's going to sweat him for anyone who's letting him go. But the truth is that if the ever lets it get to a point where he has a bit in court and he has to defend himself against corruption charges, name names, they're all going to go down again. Nobody's going to let that happen. So they will sweat him. They'll keep him for a few months. They'll put out a shouty headlight, like they did with Desani. When they accused Desani of stealing an amount that was equal to 3 years of Nigeria's budget, like nonsensical things like that. They will do things like that with him. But ultimately, one day you just see a picture of him being freed and him hugging his family members, and everybody will move on. That's exactly what they did with Sambo Dasuki. They accused him of stealing the $1.5 billion. They held him for 18 months. And they let him go. Nothing happened. The sky didn't fall down. That's exactly what's going to happen with this guy. They're just far as Tinubu has a political grudge against him that needs to be settled. Because Tinubu feels as if this guy tried to work against his election, which I think he did. So this is his punishment, and punishment has to be public. That's to send a signal. Anybody who is thinking of opposing Tinubu in the future, that these are the consequences if you work against me. I think beyond that, nothing's going to happen to him. He's not going to die. He's not going to prison.
I agree with you. I think it's the classic representation, this classic comparison there was what you use, Sabo Dasuki. Maybe after a year, they're going to release it. Nasir Rufai, I read somewhere is in Egypt. He didn't want the ministerial appointment. Nasir is a very dangerous guy politically. Do you think Tinubu should be worried that he's out of the country? Because I know under Obasanjo had the likes of Aliu Gusu around him, but he didn't want them far away so that, he wanted to be seeing them every morning. There's some people you need to keep around you. So that's my final question. Should Bola Tinubu be worried that Rufai is not in the country? Considering also that his buddy, his main man, Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, is walking into the jail, walking into the presidential palace, fantastic relationship with the ulamas. Should Tinubu be worried?
I think Tinubu should be worried, but I don't think Tinubu is an intelligent enough person to understand that he should be worried. I think Tinubu is very used to the politics of people, which is very transactional, buying and selling, and that's all there is to it. I don't think he's quite evolved enough to understand the level.
What we are trying to say here.
Level of politics that people like Erofai and Sanusi play. I think obviously there's money involved too, but it's so much more than just money. Those are genuinely smart people, very dangerous people, as you said. Very dangerous people. Their own kind of danger is not that they'll get everything low or to go and shoot you. No. They have a lot more finesse than that, and they're a lot more deadly than that. Right? So those type of danger is that some political opponent will turn up there somewhere. That's the reverse kind of danger is that an entire local government will turn up there somewhere. And you will know that somehow is linked to it, but you cannot prove it. So those kind of people, as you said, those are the kind of enemies that you want to keep close to yourself. But again, the fact that Tinubu actually allowed everybody to be schemed out of his administration, that tells me all I need to know about Tinubu, that he's not a very smart person.
Thank you, David Hundeyin. Now we have been listening to Atlantic Discourse, and that's why it's always a discourse. We have an opinion, our guests, we have an opinion. I honestly think in the ECOWAS issue, the backing was just too much. Nothing is going to happen. I think from our own side of it, we can easily predict that there will be an agreement with the regime that they will spend 2 years and have a transition to civil rule. That's what's going to end it. Nobody is going to do anything major because of Zoom. I even suspect that when Nola, the American woman, went to Niger, there was already an underground agreement, that kind of thing. I think France is going to be the major loser in all this. But those guys, like you said, they are fantastic politicians. Whoever is advising them, they've done a very good job. Nigeria has been boxed to a corner. A weak Nigerian leader trying to act like a strong Nigerian leader. I mean, even America, before they attacked Saddam Hussein during the First World War, had to look for an armada, which is a naval name, but had to use that, a major coalition of countries to even think of doing that. We don't have the economical might. We don't even have the requisite diplomat for that kind of thing. Even Algeria is checkmating us now. So Nigeria is in a very dire state, very, very dire state. Everybody's worried. We don't know what the future will bring, but the Nigerian judiciary has an historic responsibility to reset the country. No matter how bad the situation is, there's always opportunity to reset. So David, thank you. We're going to call it a wrap there, and we'll always call you anytime we need you. Thank you for always, listening to us and taking time to come and talk to our people. Take care, our viewers. Best of luck. Have a great week ahead. And we'll come to you next week with another very juicy and interesting topic. There's a lot happening. Most likely next week, we're going to talk about Mr. Trump that is going to be arraigned in Florida, in Atlanta. So thank you. Take care. God bless you. Thank you, David.